we were learning about the Talmud's comment on this verse in Song of Songs, L'reach shmenecha tevim. L'reach shmenecha tevim, anum turek shmecha. That the deeds of our patriarchs are considered like a fragrance, and our deeds are considered like the oil itself. So what we explained so far is that the difference between what our patriarchs did and what we do, why is our deeds compared to oil and their deeds compared to the fragrance? There's two characteristics in a fragrance. First of all, the fragrance is not the thing itself; it's just a fragrance. And second of all, fragrance eventually it stops. The fragrance goes away. So yeah, it dissipates. So in a similar way, the mitzvahs that our forefathers did, they didn't draw down the essence of Hashem. They had a spiritual service of Hashem where they connected to a very limited.
Is that because it was before Matan Torah?
Before giving the Torah.
So that's why they didn't do that.
Right. Before, when Hashem gave us the Torah, He said, "I am giving to you my very essence." So therefore, they don't have the essence of Hashem in their mitzvahs. They didn't have that. And the second thing is that their mitzvahs are they didn't have an effect in the physical reality, a permanent physical effect. While they were involved, whatever they did, so there was some spiritual impact through their activity, but that spiritual impact didn't remain in the physical item with which they did the mitzvahs. So, for example, Yaakov, it says the Zohar says when he was peeling the staffs, so it was considered, the Zohar says he was accomplishing the same thing as when we put on tefillin, but the staffs didn't retain any holiness. And also, even while he was doing whatever he was doing, he didn't connect to the essence of Hashem, he only connected to a ray of godliness, a very limited light of Hashem, not the essence of Hashem. So these two distinctions that we're making, that our mitzvahs connect to Hashem's essence, and number two, that the mitzvahs that we do has a lasting, infinite, eternal physical effect on the physical reality. So when we put on tefillin, or when we even just make a pair of tefillin, that physical item is now a holy item forever. These two distinctions actually connected to each other. Why are they connected to each other? Because the distance between the physical and the spiritual is also infinite. It's impossible to bring the spiritual into the physical. It's only because Hashem Himself has no limitations whatsoever is it possible for there to be a suspension of the borders between the physical and the spiritual. So because the mitzvahs before the giving of the Torah were not connected to Hashem's very essence, they're only only a tiny ray of godliness. That's why they didn't have a lasting, they couldn't traverse the gap between the physical and the spiritual and remain in the physical reality because they weren't infinite. They were coming only from a limited ray of godliness. It's only our mitzvahs which draw and connect us to Hashem's very essence that have a lasting effect in the physical reality because Hashem has no limitations. And therefore it's possible that we do a mitzvah and the mitzvah affects the physical reality so that the physical reality then becomes a spiritual one.
So if Torah is holy, tefillin is holy, those items are holy because of what you have said.
Right, because it comes to the essence of Hashem, and therefore it's possible that the item itself is holy. So these two distinctions, which are connected to each other, lead us to a third point, and that is, not only is there a difference between the impact of the mitzvahs that we do, that our mitzvahs connect to Hashem's essence, and they draw Hashem's essence into physical reality, and our forefathers were only connected to a ray of godliness, and that doesn't draw it down to the physical reality. This also leads us to a third point, which is in the actual performance of the mitzvah itself. What are you actually doing, and how are you doing? Because the role of the physical performance of mitzvahs that were done before the giving of the Torah was merely a spiritual one, it didn't really matter how you did it. You don't have to do it according to a specific formula. Like, for example, when you're happy, right? You're happy, and so you dance, so you sing. Since the role of your dancing, the role of your singing is an expression of your happiness, it doesn't matter exactly how you dance and how you sing. It's not like first you figure out how to dance and then you can be happy. It's first that you're happy, and that will help you dance. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't work the other way too. When you dance, it does add to your simcha, but let's say it this way, that if you don't have all the steps right, you could still be happy. It's not like you can't be happy without the specific moves, unless you're trying to impress people with your dancing. So then you're not dancing because of your happiness, you're dancing because you want to impress people. But if you're dancing because you're besimcha, so it doesn't matter how you clap your hands and how you jump up and how you sing and how you dance. It's all just you, how you feel. In a similar way, before the giving of the Torah, it says that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov all performed the mitzvahs before the Torah was given. And the Zohar says that Yaakov peeled the sticks. It doesn't say what Avram did, how he put on film, how Yitzchak put on film. They all must have put on film in their own way because they kept the Torah before the Torah was given. So there must have been some way that they performed the Torah, how they put on film, how they did all these physical mitzvahs, but it was different, and it could be different because no specific formula is needed. Avram has a soul which is aligned with God's attribute of kindness. Yitzchak's divine service is connected to his reverence for Hashem, and therefore Avram put on tefillin physically in his way. Yaakov peeled staffs. Avram had his own way of doing it. It didn't have to be the same. They could be different because the goal wasn't the physical action. The physical action was merely a prop for them to engage in a spiritual activity. The goal wasn't the action, like our dancing. And the goal wasn't, when we dance, the goal isn't the dancing, the goal is the feeling. So, actually I shouldn't say, after giving the Torah, there's an advantage in the actual action of dancing itself, because we are after giving the Torah. But let's say, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's say it this way. When we put on tefillin, if the tefillin aren't aligned exactly in the center of our head, although we have kosher tefillin and everything, the mitzvah is not being accomplished. It's really sad, by the way. See people come every day to shul and their tefillin, and they don't know how to put on tefillin, and they make such an effort, and yet they're not really doing the mitzvah tefillin. And so it's good to shed the embarrassment and to go over to them and say, hey, can I help you with that? Or use better words. But the point is that it's possible to go every single day to show your whole life and put on tefillin and never once do the mitzvah. The formula is important. Or conversely, you could have someone who has no interest in the tefillin. I just want to get this over with, and yet they are making that mark every single day. And the reason why our mitzvahs are so formula related is because we're after giving the Torah. Hashem himself has no limitations. So just like he's not connected specifically with the physical, he's not connected with the spiritual either. So there's nothing that we could do spiritually to align ourselves, to connect with Hashem's essence, nothing that we could do to figure out how to connect to Hashem's essence, nothing that we could do that's worthy of touching his essence. The only reason we can connect to Hashem's essence is because Hashem chooses to connect with us, because God chooses to give us a mitzvah. He chooses that a physical mitzvah matters to him. It's because of his choice that the physical mitzvah matters. So before the giving of the Torah, where the role of the physical performance is merely a prop for a spiritual exercise, so it doesn't matter how you do it your own way. The formula doesn't matter. Aaron, do it your way. Yitzchak, do it your way. You're trying to express your soul. So you're chesed, do it the chesed way. But after giving the Torah, the trajectory changes, the yardstick changes. The whole point is to bring down the essence of Hashem. And therefore, what draws down the essence of Hashem? What he chooses that connects to his essence. And therefore, he chooses that the physical reality has to be made in this measurement. If it's not that measurement, it will not draw down the divine energy. If it is that measurement, no matter what you're thinking, what you're feeling, it will draw down the divine, connect to Hashem's essence. This explains another facet of this analogy of fragrance. That their mitzvahs are like a fragrance, and our mitzvahs like the oil. The Gemara says about a fragrance that the soul enjoys the fragrance, not the body. The soul enjoys the fragrance. When you smell something, what is benefit, what's enjoying a fragrance? It's your soul. That's why after Shabbos, when the soul is upset that the Shabbos has ended, how do we pacify the soul? By having the psamim by smelling the fragrance of the psamim. So the soul is pacified by a fragrance. A fragrance touches a soul. In a similar way, the performance of the mitzvahs, our forefathers, it was all soul-based. It was all about their soul's experience. It wasn't about the physical reality. It wasn't about what they did. It was about what they felt, what they were into. And that's why it reminds me of, as mentioned last time, it reminds me of the mitzvah of education, that there's a discussion in Achronim how you're supposed to educate a child to do a mitzvah. Does the mitzvah have to have the actual formula of the mitzvah? Or is it sufficient that the child thinks he's doing the mitzvah? So if you have a lulav and esrog, and you give your child your lulav and esrog, so halacha says that you have to own the lulav and esrog. If you don't own it, it's not a mitzvah. But once you give your child lulav and esrog, he doesn't have the halachic ability to give it back to you. A child kohen bin makna, he could acquire something, he cannot give something. So if you pretend to give it to him, he's just borrowing it. Only you know that you decide he's just borrowing it. He thinks now he owns it. He has doing the mitzvah. So, or let's say he's too young to even know that halacha. And so, in your mind, I'm just lending it to him. I don't want to have this issue of trying to get the lulav and esrog back. So, is that sufficient? Other people buy these sets of lulav and esrog. They call them in the stores chinuch sets. Why are they called chinuch sets? Because they're not kosher. They're not missing. They don't have the appropriate. The esrog is missing a pitim. The lulav is broken. The spine is broken. So they call them education sets. Are they kosher for education? So it depends. If the goal of education is for the child to just get accustomed to the action of the mitzvah, then it's sufficient. But if the goal is that the child should actually get accustomed to doing mitzvahs, it should actually be doing a mitzvah, so then he has to be doing a mitzvah. It has to be considered according to the formula, according to the strictures of what the Torah says a mitzvah is. And it's pretty clear, I think, that the Alter Rebbe views the second opinion as correct. That you have to give the child an opportunity not just to do the action of the mitzvah, but actually to be doing an actual mitzvah according to the formula of Torah. That's the mitzvah education. And therefore the best thing is to get your child his own lulav and esrog, because you want your child to be doing an actual mitzvah, not to think he's doing a mitzvah, not to get used to the action of a mitzvah, but to be doing a mitzvah. So similarly, before the giving of the Torah, the goal wasn't the action. The goal was like this first opinion about education, where the goal is just to get them used to a certain activity. So too, the Ar Mitzvah Yaakov, there was something which was completely about the soul. They had to do physical action as well, but that was just in order that their spiritual performance should be full. They are souls and bodies. So in order for their spiritual activity to be a full one, they had to also have some kind of physical expression. Like when we're happy, we have to also dance, we have to also sing. But what is it about? It's about our feelings. So comes out we have three differences between the performance of the mitzvahs of our forefathers and our performance of mitzvahs. Number one, our mitzvahs connect to Hashem's very essence. Number two, our mitzvahs connect to Hashem's very essence, therefore they have a physical lasting effect on the reality of the physical world, that the godly energy that is drawn down to the mitzvah stays in the physical world. It doesn't leave it, because Hashem has no limitations, and therefore it's able to be in the physical reality. The essence of Hashem suspends the borders of the physical and the spiritual, and therefore there's a lasting effect in the physical reality. And number three, that's why in our mitzvahs, everyone does them the same. Whether your soul is from Beis Shammai, who is aligned with Gevura, or Beis Hillel, and they have their opinions of how mitzvahs are supposed to be done. But today, when there's halacha says the opinion follows Beis Hillel, everybody has to do like Beis Hillel. Why? You mind the Shammos from Beis Shammai. The reason we have to follow Beis Hillel is because since there's halacha is the formula that draws on the essence of Hashem. It's not about your experience of it. It's about Hashem's desire to connect to us, and His desire is according to the specific formula of halacha. Okay, so you with me so far?
Okay.
All right. So the question though is, so why is it then important to talk about in the Torah in such length about what our forefathers did? L'cheira madahava hava. Seemingly whatever happened. They did their thing, and now it's history. Why do we need today to study about what Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov did if their performance of mitzvahs is different than ours? So Nachmanides says that the purpose of the Torah's discussion about our forefathers is Maisa Avasim Labanim. Their deeds empower their children. Their deeds give the power to their children to do mitzvahs today. It's not just some happened in the past, but it's something that is a precursor and a preparation, introduction to allow the giving of the Torah. In other words, in order, yes, indeed, the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, and when Hashem gave us the Torah, He did say Anochi, and He gave us His very essence. But in order for the Torah to be given, the world wasn't. Why couldn't the Torah have been given without our forefathers? Because our forefathers, through their spiritual performance of mitzvahs, they did elevate the world somewhat. There was some kind of transformation of the world through their spiritual performance of mitzvahs. It did have some effect on the physical reality. It not a lasting one, but there's something that changed. And because of that, it was possible for the Torah to be given. So their performance of mitzvahs, in their spiritual way, was a preparation for giving the Torah. Actually, it says in the Talmud that there are three different sets of 2 millennia each of creation. And the first 2,000 years, the Gemara describes as chaos. The second 2 millennia, the Gemara describes as Torah. When does the Torah begin? I think when Avram is 52 years old. Why when he's 52 years old? Because that's when Avram Avinu began to preparing the world for the giving of the Torah. So there's something about our forefathers' performance of mitzvahs which allows us to do mitzvahs. Okay, but still,
chaos, Torah, and the third is
Mashiach.
of course.
So the question though was this: fine, their service was necessary, and it was preparation, but it's part of Torah. The word Torah means instruction. It means it's not just something that was necessary and it's just a sign for us. It has to be something that's pertinent to us. Otherwise, we wouldn't learn about it. And the reason why it's pertinent, why it's a lesson, why it's an instruction for us is this. We also have to engage in what they did as well. We also need, today, although we have the Torah, we also have to follow the formula. We also have to follow the spiritual service of our forefathers. Their spiritual service is necessary for us today. How? So let's first, for a moment, analyze the virtue of the service of our forefathers that surpasses what we can possibly do today. Their service was a spiritual service, indeed. It wasn't physical, it wasn't connecting to Hashem's essence, but precisely because it wasn't connected to Hashem's essence, there's an advantage that their spiritual service has. Because it was lower, because it was connected to a lower light of Hashem, not the essence of Hashem, there's an advantage. What's the advantage? In our performance of mitzvahs, in our activity that we do, our mitzvahs, they draw down the essence of Hashem. But why do they draw down the essence of Hashem? Because He chooses to connect to us. It has to do with Him. It doesn't have to do with who we are and where we're up to. It doesn't have to do with our persona. It doesn't have to do with our character. It doesn't have to do with our purification of our character and our spiritual advancement. It's just because of Him. So it comes out that God's connecting to us with the mitzvahs have nothing to do with us, has to do only with Him. On the other hand, if we're talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and their reverence, and their love for Hashem, and their excitement in mitzvahs, and their whatever they were doing, they were very much aligned with the spiritual light that they were connected to. That was connected to who they were. When Avram experienced his love for Hashem, he was connected to God's kindness to the extent that it says in the book of Bahir, Sefer HaBahir, that Avram replaced God's attribute of kindness. He was a conduit of God's attribute of kindness in the physical world. So Avram is very aligned with his spiritual source, and he's able to connect to it, but not because it's not Hashem's essence, because it's not God's essence, only a ray of godliness. Therefore, it's able to become very much part of who He is. So in a similar way, Hashem wants us not only to connect to His essence, but He wants us to be very present in our mitzvahs. That our mitzvahs should become part of who we are. And therefore, the thoughts that we have, the feelings that we have when we perform mitzvahs are important. although they don't, the main thing is the mitzvah itself. The main thing is the physical performance of the mitzvah. That's what draws down Hashem's essence. But in order for that to shine into us, into our feelings and our thoughts, therefore Hashem says, I want you to think about something when you do a mitzvah. I want you to also engage what your grandparents did when they did mitzvahs. I want you also to be alive and excited and be passionate about what you're doing. Don't just do it because you did it yesterday. Be excited about it. That way, the essence of Hashem, which is drawn down through a mitzvah, shines into us as well. What draws down Hashem's essence, again, is the actual physical performance of the mitzvah. However, what brings that light into who we are is our feelings, our kavanah, our thoughts when we perform a mitzvah. And so that's why the Torah tells us at such length to study the story of our patriarchs, because we also have to be like our patriarchs. We have to also live with that love and reverence for Hashem that they had, in order for our mitzvahs should become part of who we are as well. All right, any questions or comments? All right. Good Chodesh, a freilichen Chodesh.